You're listening to the UKC Hunting Ops Podcast, celebrating hunting dog heritage, competition, and community. United Kennel Club has been the hunting dog sports home for coonhounds, beagles, retrievers, pointers, cur, feist, and more for over 125 years.
Welcome back, everybody, to the UKC Hunting Ops Podcast. This is Trevor Wade, Coonhound Program Manager here at UKC, and I'm joined by Mr. Alan Gingrich, the Director of Hunting Ops. How's it going today, Alan?
Good.
Yeah, excited to be talking hounds again.
Yeah.
It's been a while. We just got back from one of your Beagle Gun Dog events down there in Cleveland, North Carolina, and we had a blast over there.
Yeah, that was a little different for you, probably.
It was. I think we went to one back in April, last weekend in April, was it? To a kind of a different format, but same premise.
SPO National Championship in Mississippi, yeah. So this one's a little different than that, but a lot of the same concepts.
Yeah, we had beautiful weather, good dog people there, and we had a real good time there.
Yeah, matter of fact, we did some recording there for the podcast stuff, so you're going to probably hear about that next week.
Yeah, absolutely, and they got some good interviews, so that'll be a fun listen. And I hope some of our coonhound guys. There's a lot of crossover there between guys who run back rabbits and beagles. And
matter of fact, one of the guys that was in the World Championship placed in top 16. Robert Hutchins was there with he handled the chicken dog named Chicken.
Yeah.
He was there at the trial and was competing there. Yeah,
I had to pick his brain a little bit. I don't know how people stay up all night coon hunting and then cut loose beagles in the morning to run rabbits with. They're tougher than I am.
I know. I had to take a second take when he showed up. He kind of popped in there, and I thought he looked familiar, but at a beagle trial, you don't expect really to see somebody like that there. And it took me a little bit to get it figured out. It's like, oh, there you go. That's who that is.
Yeah, I know it's not uncommon for people to run both, but competing at both at high levels like the World Championship and a National Championship is impressive to be able to tune dogs up in both of those. So.
Absolutely.
Speaking of hunting dogs, I know you got some vacation coming up here this weekend and next week, right?
I do. So I'm gonna hit the UP, bud.
Yeah.
It's that time.
Poor Henry and Homer, they better be rested up.
Yeah, they are. And usually I've had them up there several times, for a day or two, just to kind of get them in shape a little bit. And I just did not have time this year, but so we'll just take it slow and plan on taking about a 10-day vacation. Gonna run some dogs.
Yeah, that's going to be a blast. How's the weather looking up there right now?
Well, as we're recording this, they've got a storm coming in, and they're calling for parts of the UP to have up to over a foot of snow. But
Jeez.
I don't think not where I'm going, so I'm thinking that's further north and further west. But a little snow is good, but 2 feet is not what I'm looking forward to.
You never know this time of year up here.
Yeah,
it's just,
but hey, my brother Paul, he's all fired up about it. He's bringing an RV up this year, so we're gonna have that. We're gonna have another wall tent. And last year we had some propane tanks in there for heat. This year we've got a stove, and we're gonna burn some wood this year. So it's gonna be primitive, but it's gonna be good and fun. I hope.
Going to have the Houndsman XP guys up there doing a live podcast from the camp again.
Well, I think Chris might be coming up there, so we'll see. I hope he does.
Yeah, those are always fun to listen to.
Yeah.
So, today's episode is going to be kind of talking about the end of our programs going up. We're here at the end of the year. A lot of our stuff is wrapping up. So in this episode, we're going to announce who our Triple Crown winner is. We're going to talk about the top 10 bench show race ending. Yeah. This is the last month of it. And then also we're going to talk about the TOC, which is Tournament Champions, which is winding down real quick.
Yep. And like you said, our events have kind of been wrapped up, and it doesn't seem that long ago. You and I were sitting right here in this very place talking about the upcoming Autumn Oaks. And here we are. It's a wrap.
It flies by. August, September, October, they fly by.
Yep.
And before you know it, we're here announcing these things. But hey, this is the third time that we've talked about the Triple Crown on this podcast, and that just goes to show how important it is to us. This is one of our premier programs that we have, and it's something that we invest a lot into. Yep. And we want to highlight guys who perform at the highest level in all three of our major event segments.
For sure. Our winner this year, it didn't. It got exciting down to the end, and it didn't. It went all the way down to the wire. So there's some interesting little notes that we're going to be talking about how it'll happen and everything. So
yeah. And without further ado, this year's Triple Crown winner is Night Champion Indian Creek Nova. This is a 4-year-old English female owned by Gregory Wallace in Randolph, Alabama.
Yeah. Yep. And he's been in this position before to in contention for it. And the last time I forgot about it, but I think it was 2014.
Yeah,
he was in contention for it and got beat out on a tiebreaker, basically in the same position he is in this year, except for he was on the other side of the tiebreaker. Right.
Yeah, our first tiebreaker. So him and Chad McCoyne with the Black River Poncho dog in Hartford City, Indiana, they actually tied with the exact same amount of points.
Yep.
175 points accrued across the 3 events. And so at that point, it comes down to who accrued the most plus points in their cast wins at those events of the year, and that's where Greg had the advantage and was able to secure his win at the Triple Crown.
Yeah, and like I mentioned there, then in 2014 he was on the other side. He was on Chad's side there, so he's experienced that as well. So congratulations to him. Good guy. Yeah, great guy.
Yeah, I really got to know him this year at some of our major events and talking to him through messages and different things, and he's one of the good guys in the sport that we talk about a lot. He's a really family-oriented guy. At these major events, you're always going to see him with his dad, Greg, and his son, Reese.
Yeah.
And just make it a whole family thing. And that's what I love about our major events. A lot of them are just enjoyable for the whole family to be there.
Yeah.
It was last time we talked, they were kind of tied going into the zone. Chad and Greg with Nova and Poncho going into the zones, and both of them were able to secure one cast win on the weekend of the zones. Unfortunately for Chad, he didn't have enough to advance to the finals in Dyersburg, Tennessee, but Greg did. He had one cast win that was good enough to advance to Dyersburg, Tennessee. So he was tied. He already had the lead as far as total points.
So he already had Poncho beat at that point, but he still didn't have it wrapped up.
Right. There were a few dogs that could have made a run all the way to the finals once we get there, and the first round shakes out. That's whenever we know that Nova and Greg have secured the win at that point.
Yeah.
So that's fun, and congratulations to Greg. I had a chance to talk to him a little bit about it afterwards, and I want to talk a little bit about Nova. And he says this here, Nova is a complete outcross of his line of dogs. He's like the dog in 2014, the Wallen Split Tree Abbey was his dog that he was hunting back then, and that's the line of dogs that he's had for a while. And he got this Nova dog as a total outcross from his line of dogs that he's hunting right now, and he had breeding plans for the dog in the future. And now, obviously, the dog turned out to be a top performer as well, so he's competing at a high level with her too. But we talked a little bit about Nova's breeding here. Anything stand out to you here about her breeding?
Yeah, well, obviously on the top side, Top Gun, Wilcox's Thunder Top Gun, world champion right there, and her sire is off a Top Gun, River Swamp Crow, a Grand Night champion. And then, there I see a dog named Moore's Hard Time Rocky too. That's a dog that won, was a winning dog back in the day. Richard Moore owned that dog.
Yeah,
won a lot in the annual series that we had here at UKC. A very well-known dog. And then the bottom side, Looney's Big Oconee River Lola, Big River Dan, some of Moody's Big Chopper. Some of those dogs are come out of South Georgia. Of Mark Looney, so I've seen a few of those. I've seen Big River Dan go, just a nice dog, and a really nice pedigree here, and no accident, I'd say.
Not a surprise that this dog's put him in this situation,
and a good-looking female too.
Yeah, talking to Greg, this he really likes this Nova dog, and he finds himself hunting mostly major events of the year. Obviously, he has a son, Reese. I'm not sure exactly how old he is, probably 19 years old. Something around there. So he's kind of tied up a lot, but they do make it a point to make it to quite a few major events. And a lot of Nova's wins this year have come at major events. Yeah. Kind of looking at her wins here. She did get a cast win at Winter Classic last year. Obviously doubled up at Winter Classic this year. 750 on Friday night. Got a good high placement there, and 50 plus on Saturday to secure the double cast win. Qualified the dog at the Cottondale, Alabama RQE in March, had the cast win at Autumn Oaks, and the cast win at the zones that got him to the top 100 of the world. Yeah. So he's kind of been at only major events this year.
Yeah, and he's done quite well.
Yeah. And going into the top 100, he said this is actually the first time he's ever made it to the top 100.
Really?
Yeah, first time he's made it through the zones. He's hunted in the zones a few times, but it's first time going to the top 100. And he enjoyed himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, he's going to get, $3,000 is what it pays to win this from UKC. So, I can just you like to see good guys do well, and here's another one. And you know what? He comes, he's going to be in a pretty elite group, The first Triple Crown champion was in 2000. So he's number 22 is what it amounts to. But there's some pretty big names on this list.
Yeah. It's a top list of dogs that have won this, and like it just shows consistency to be able to win in all different types of terrains and times of year. Just a steady, consistent cast winner, and that's what Nova must be.
Yeah. You're talking about, in the South Winter Classic, the train's different there. Conditions are often different there in middle of February as opposed to Autumn Oaks. Middle of summer. The end of summer is often still hot. You're back up in Indiana, and then wherever the World Championship zones are in the finals. So. It's a test.
Yeah, and like I said, it was the first time in the top 100. He got to make it there. His son Reese didn't get to come. It was in the middle of football season, in the middle of school year. And he said, talked to him about he was pretty bummed out he didn't get to come. And I know Reese listens to this, bud. You got a long time to hunt in front of you. But like your dad said, it was important for him to hold up to the commitment that he made to his football team, to be there and to be a part of that. And you got to commend that. That's raising a son right.
For sure. Yep, for sure. And a good little boy. And he is all in with, it seems like, with his sports at school or going hunting and things like that. You always see him at the Winter Classic, and he's just all into it.
Yeah. And like you said, Greg, you got a $3,000 check heading your way. It hit the mail yesterday, as a matter of fact. Got a jacket heading your way, an embroidered jacket to commemorate your win. And I think your dad might have pulled some strings, and Reese may be having one coming on the way too. So you guys will be looking pretty sharp next year at Winter Classic whenever you get to come up on stage. So I'm looking forward to seeing you guys there.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
This podcast is brought to you by the all-new Dogtra Pathfinder 2. Dogtra, the official GPS collar partner of UKC. So the program that's really coming to an end here quick is our Top 10 Bench Show program. That's been started November 1st of last year, and it runs all the way through October 31st of this year. So by the time you're listening to this, this coming weekend is going to be your last chance to accrue any points towards that at all. Mm-hmm. No pressure there, but it is coming up quick.
Yeah, so it's October 31st it ends, I think. Yeah.
So let me just go through it for you guys who are kind of thinking about it or running for it and want to know how the process goes from here. Obviously, you've had all year to accrue points. On October 31st, it's going to end, and then we're going to work our hardest to get all of our missing reports or reports that aren't in yet in a timely manner, get them processed, and get the points finalized. And we give ourselves to December 31st to do that. Obviously, at the end of October, it takes a few weeks to get here, get them processed, and we should be finalized before December 31st, but that's the absolute deadline to get points added to a dog's record to finalize the top 10 bench show standing points. And then the invitations are going to be sent out to those dogs who were in the top 10 of their breed shortly after that, early January, whenever we get back in the office after our New Year's break. Those invitations will hit the mail for you. And you'll probably know if you're in or not if you're keeping up with the standings on the website, but you'll get your official invite and kind of the information of how the event goes, so you'll be ready by middle of February whenever Winter Classic rolls around.
Yep, and that's always a good time and anticipation there of finalizing everything, and it's also a good time to just to kind of shout out to clubs, that do have bench shows here in the last couple of months of the season here for the top 10, ends October 31st, as you mentioned. To get those reports into us and how important that is to get them in so we can give everybody their due credit.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously there's different ways to do that. A lot of clubs now are taking the route of taking good, clear pictures or scanning the reports and emailing them into us and getting them processed the next day. And man, that's working pretty good for us now. So that's an option for you guys.
Scanning is the best way.
Yeah.
Just a good.
Just so it's good and legible for everybody to see. So.
Right.
But obviously the standings are on the UKC Dogs website. If you go to the standings and results tab under Coonhounds, you can go look at the top 10 standings. I've been updating that every other Tuesday for the past 6 or 8 months, however long it's been now.
Yeah, and it's important, when you update that, that's just based on the reports that we have in and processed.
Right.
So generally it takes a report a good, depends on when the club sends it in, but you got to give it a good 4 or 5 days to get to the UKC office, and then a day or two, and the ladies here in the office usually have it processed pretty quickly.
Right. And that the standings there on the website, those will continue to be this year's standings. until we get this whole thing finalized, get invites out, and then we'll shift over to next year's standings starting November 1st. We're not going to publish those right away. We're going to get this one finalized, make sure everybody knows that they're in there, and then possibly around Winter Classic time, we'll transition to the next year's standings. So that way there's no confusion.
Start the new standings for the next year, right?
Don't want to confuse any folks. I want to make sure that people who are in it know that they're in it and they're able to go compete at the Winter Classic, and that's kind of turning into a big deal show for us. I enjoyed it in the past couple of years we've had it, and I hope that we're going to. Obviously, we've been putting a lot of effort into it as far as cutting off the arena floor and taking really high quality pictures and video and some things to put out. And I hope that we keep continuing to put more media coverage on it. And talking to some of the upper management, I think that we are going to try to put more of an emphasis on getting some quality content from that show.
Yeah, and I'm getting the same thing. You've really been pushing for it, and I'm in 100% support of that. And I think I think we need to, and really make this a big deal. It is a big deal, but we also want to do our part. And like you said, we've done quite a bit with it too. But I think we can. It's not going to hurt to just try to do even more with it. So
that's right. Yeah. So really, really looking forward to seeing how the top 10 shakes out. And if you just have a couple more shows this weekend, a chance to accrue points, don't feel discouraged. Obviously, some of the leaderboards for some of the breeds, the top is obviously they have really good point totals, but towards the end, there's still some room there to kind of slide in. Black and Tans right now, 48 points is the cutoff. That's attainable if you're there close. Leopard Hounds only 21 points to get into the top 10 currently. So if you're showing a leopard dog, you have a really good shot at getting in if you go to a decent sized show. Blue Ticks, 52 points is the cutoff as of this recording. English, 39 points. Plot, 38 points. Redbone, 24. If you've been showing Tree and Walker, hopefully you have some points accrued because it takes 82 points to get in the top 10 of that breed. A very competitive breed. So,
that's a very competitive breed right there, yeah.
So, and we're going to talk more about our top 10 and stuff winners. We're so close to the finalizing our list right now. It would kind of be, I don't want to make this show irrelevant by talking about who the leaders are and what they've done whenever we're about to finalize the list in 2 weeks. Then we can talk about the actual winners.
Yeah, right. And really highlight that part of it then.
And we're going to get into talking some of those dogs and give those people credit for all the work they've put in this year.
Right.
And I'm looking forward to doing that and giving those people their due credit.
For sure.
So transitioning from the top 10, another thing that we talked about just a little bit ago, Tournament of Champions. It's coming down to the nitty gritty here for people. You got just a couple more months to accrue cast wins on your dog's record to get those 5 cast wins this year and get qualified for next year's Tournament of Champions. Just a fun program. We see it on our social media sites all the time. Qualified for the TOC, see it everywhere, and it's becoming a very popular program. The TOC, Tournament of Champions, but yeah, and a lot of dogs getting qualified again this year. Yeah, seems like in the past couple of weeks, every weekend I wake up and I scroll through there to see, who's posting pictures from their weekend events. Yeah. And it's got my 5th win, qualified for the TOC this year, seeing it more and more. So that list is just going to grow and grow. Well, here we are recording this in the middle of October, about the 20th of October here, I guess. But last year, the last couple of years, you had a lot of guys come December that had that 4th win and thinking they're going to get that and just lost out. So don't be one of those guys this year. Get out there and they don't come free. That's right. So. Get out there and give yourself a little bit of leeway at least. Right. Yeah. So there's still time. Then there's going to be a lot of dogs right now sitting at 3 and 4 cast wins. Right. There's a lot. There's a lot right now. And I'd say right now, I know obviously we're more than 3/4 of the way through the calendar year, but as far as processing report and getting in event reports, we're probably 3/4 of the way through with that. So Let's take a little look at the TOC right now at the 3/4 way mark of the year. Yeah. We're sitting as of the update, that was last Tuesday. So that would have been October 10th was the last update on our website. So this is the numbers as of October 10th. And remember, that's not as if you had a win October 9th, that one wasn't processed yet. It would have been the reports processed by October 10th. We're sitting with 778 dogs qualified currently, which is really strong. Yeah, it's very strong. Right on pace with last year, if not a little bit ahead of last year's pace. And really tickled with the number of dogs now. Yeah. Right now, our breed breakdown, we got 50 black and tans qualified, 2 leopards, 72 blue ticks, 113 English hounds. That's pretty strong there. That is strong showing by then. Yep. 7 plots, 25 red bones, 484 walkers, and 25 X spreads.
Yeah, 25 X-breds. That's good too. I'm not sure what we had last year. I don't know if you know or not, but that seems strong to me as well.
Yeah, they seem to be becoming more and more relevant, it seems like.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Leaving their mark on it.
Right.
Male, female breakdown, 422 males, 356 females. And a little bit of our top performance states. Let's look at our top 5 performance states.
There's Kentucky again at the top.
a lot of familiar names here. Kentucky has 74 dogs qualified. Indiana nipping at their heels right now with 73. Ohio in third there with 65. Missouri with 56. Drop it right there for Missouri a little bit. That's a state that doesn't get quite the recognition it deserves, I think, of always being in the top, near the top in hunt entries, show entries.
Right.
Just all their clubs put a lot of emphasis on it. They seem to do an awesome job. So we talk a lot about Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, but Missouri is always right there with those guys. And then Tennessee rounds out the top 5 with 49 qualified dogs.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not really surprised. Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio. You would think one would probably think Ohio or Indiana, Ohio, and then maybe Kentucky and a couple of the others. But there you go, Kentucky's on top of it here. Yeah, they like this TOC. They've been up there in about all of our each year in some of the top standings that we've talked about.
They led the country in qualified dogs the past 2 years, and they're going for a third. Indiana's right there on their heels, but. One thing that's interesting to me is now we're getting here to the later part of the year. The northern states are probably going to be wrapping up a lot of their competition hunts now with winter setting in, and some of the southern states may come on and get more dogs from that part of the country. Right. Well,
today's date is October the 18th, actually, and I know south of me, I live right on the Indiana-Michigan line, and today my brother is about an hour south of me, and they're covered in snow today. So winter is coming early. So yeah. Some of these northern states are going to be done here before too long, probably.
Talking just about this time of year, it seems like this year the acorns have fallen so quick this year to me. It seems like everything's a little ahead of pace.
Yeah.
And out of the past 6 trees I've made, which was last night I made 4 drops, and then 2 the night before we left for the Gun Dog Nationals, made 6 trees. 3 of the last 6 trees I've had 2 coons in them.
Yeah,
are they rutting already?
I don't know. It seems early. That seems early.
You think they're just feeding now?
I would say so. But talking about acorns, you and I were at the Beagle event, and they had a big old white oak out there behind the clubhouse, sitting out there. That thing, you wouldn't want to sit underneath of that thing. It was dropping acorns all weekend long. Just seemed like every 10 seconds you'd hear acorns dropping.
Yeah, I had one of the old timers tell me that when the acorn crop is this strong, that means there's going to be a lot of snow this winter. I was like, yeah, appreciate that. Love to hear that.
Yeah.
So transitioning to from the top performing states, let's talk about some of the top performing dogs this year. Kind of a familiar name right here. First off, 26 cast wins this year. Grand Night Champion Hall of Fame, Trusty's King Rolo, Tree Walker male owned by Drew Estep in West Virginia.
I think he's just getting these wins. We've talked about this dog a couple times, and he's just wanting to give us reason to talk about his dog, isn't he?
He is. Drew, he likes being mentioned on the podcast, I guess, because he just keeps on winning with old Rolo.
26 cast wins. That's crazy.
Strong.
Yeah, it is strong. For sure. Well, congratulations to Drew with Rolo.
Going to be tough to catch him at this point for anybody.
Well, it's not like it's a competition, I guess, but hey, we're just we want to cover some of the dogs that have a lot of wins, and this is a program where we're capturing that data, So that's
might as well highlight it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Second, 16 wins, so 10 less than Rolo there, but still quite a few for
Missouri
Grand Night
dog.
Champion.
Missouri
Honeycutt's Ball and Buck. Tree and Walker male owned by Steve Honeycutt in Missouri, like you said. Out there getting his Federation points. 15 wins here. Grand Night Champion Black Superstar, a little black and tan female, young female owned by Mark Walker in Missouri.
Yeah.
I've seen this dog
black
at a few different events.
Black and tan.
Mark sure likes this female. She's having a lot of good luck, and she must be tough to beat because she wins just about every event I'm at. She gets a cast win somewhere. And then we got five dogs here tied with 14 wins apiece. And to go through them real quick, we'll go Grand Night Champion 2, Roberts Backwoods Quinn, Tree and Walker female owned by Jason Roberts of South Carolina. Grand Night Champion 3C's Chisholm, an X-bred owned by Dylan Castro of Oklahoma. Grand Night Champion Flat Rock Scotty, a Tree and Walker female owned by Scott Peterson and Marion Cox of Oklahoma. Grand Grand Night champion Flat Timber Lookout Rip, a black and tan male owned by Trenton and Tristan Livingston of Ohio.
That dog was in the Grand 16 this year.
That's right.
That's just a young dog as well.
I think 13 or 14 months old.
Just young.
Must have done a lot of winning this year, obviously.
Yep.
And another young dog here that people might be familiar with, Grand Night champion Shaq Southern Stogie, a tree and walker male owned by Cheyenne Cummings, Ronnie Smith, and Ike Rainey.
Yeah, that dog made a lot of waves just here this last weekend or whatever, and congratulations to him. He won the PKC World Championship.
Yeah, great dog, man, and well-deserving. And Cheyenne's son-in-law just won our UKC World Championship a couple weeks ago, and then they did this here, and man, probably a good couple weeks for this family.
Yeah, and I would say they're probably thinking about what they're going to breed old Jenna to, and I don't think they're going to probably look too far. I wouldn't think.
I don't think she needs to go too far at all. I think we'll be seeing that cross pretty soon on old Jenna.
Yeah, I have heard a lot of good things about this Stogie dog, and straight from Cheyenne too. They say he's a nice young male there. So yeah, but 14 wins here and hopefully we'll see him in the TOC next year for sure. Yeah,
and like we said, we got about 2.5 months left here for people to accrue wins. Let's see who can bust through this top here and who can get on this list of the top winners of the year by the time that's all said and done. If you're trying to contact UKC, don't wait on hold. Use the online chat feature on ukcdogs.com. Now it's time to talk a little bit about some rule changes. Obviously, we did kind of a vague episode a few episodes back where we talked about what passed and what didn't at the Automost Rules meeting, and that's our most listened to podcast to date. So people seem to really like this kind of content.
Yeah, yeah, they seem to be pretty popular, So, and I'm not really surprised. We've anytime, even in articles, we've done some surveys and things like that. It seems like the rules stuff has been a big hit. Whether it's publications and now same here on the podcast stuff. So.
And getting a lot of feedback about it. People who are enjoying listening to us talk about the rules and kind of getting the correct interpretations of the rules. And I think our whole intent of part of this podcast was to make better officials, make better judges, make better hunters. And I think that's what we're going to see from this ultimately as we continue to dive deep into the rule book and some of their interpretations of certain rules.
Right. The only thing, for us, it makes us stop and think before we speak here. When we write about rules and this and that, we have the advantage or are able to go back and read it and correct anything that needs to be corrected. Here, when we say something, it's kind of out there. So some every now and then you kind of catch yourself, doggone it, I didn't say that correctly, but but hopefully we can cover these to really explain them well.
And for anybody listening, we always talk about mentioning this on the podcast, but we oftentimes start talking and forget about it. But we've talked in depth about some different rule variations that are kind of advanced, I would say. And I think this winter, or maybe before we get to the busy spring competition season, we're going to take a chance to really dumb it down and talk about the really basic rules in our registry and help out any beginners out there who may not be as well versed in the rules as some of the guys who are listening to our more in-depth rule conversations.
For sure. I feel like we've just not really had much of that opportunity yet. We've had so many other items that, for topics and this and that, but we need to do that for sure, because we do have a lot of beginners, starters, and I think we need to speak to them, and even just beyond that, not just rules, but also, what they need to do or what to expect when they go to a club for the first time, and what to do and things like that. So yeah, for sure, we need to have some topics
and
to cover some of that stuff and the very, very basic rules like you mentioned.
Yeah, and we've had conversations. I think we have plans for kind of a larger scale video podcast where we're going to go through the rules one by one down each rule and talk about each one a little bit. And that'll be a little lengthy, but it'll be worth the listen for people and something they can always refer to.
Yeah. Well, I've always enjoyed talking about rules, and I think you're starting to kind of get that itch too a little bit.
Yeah. And also I think it would be good to just talk about some basic things about putting on events, whether it's how to fill out a scorecard. I think a lot of people aren't well versed in how to fill out a scorecard. I think that would be a good segment for us to go over for beginners. Make people more comfortable filling out scorecards and also event reports.
Yeah,
I think that'll be good for all of our clubs out there, especially with hunt directors becoming a more common format that people are using. Having some talk about filling out event reports and the importance of it is going to be good content.
Absolutely. You know, going back to filling out scorecards, you know, it seems like an easy thing to do, and there's a right way, and there's to fill them out, because basically at the end of the day, what it should do is when the event official gets the scorecard, he should be able to look at it, and it should tell him the story of what happened.
Yeah.
And if you don't have things in the right places, it's going to mess up that story. You know, he's not going to be able to do that. But yeah, that'd be a good one for sure.
Yeah, I think so. I think you guys, the next couple months, as we transition away from some of our major events, we're really going to get down to the basics of some of that stuff. And I think it's going to be good stuff to listen to. And if nothing else, for more advanced handlers, it's a good reminder.
Yeah.
But today, so in our November advisor column, there's six rule proposals that passed at Autumn Oaks. So I split them up in 3 and 3. And in this episode, we're going to talk about 3 of the rule changes that are going to take place in January of 2023. And the first one is going to be one that I figure we might as well go ahead and talk about. It's probably the most discussed one, like we've talked about on here a couple of times, and that's the passing of thermals.
Yeah.
This is one that passed unanimously, 7-0 at Autumn Oaks. All 7 breed associations voted for the passing of it. And obviously, if you look back at the proposal, it talked about the use of cell phone cameras and mirrors. Those were taken out as part of an amendment that was brought forth to the table, and the associations voted to pass this one 7-0 with the amendment that thermal imaging devices will be allowed to be used as scoring aids. Cell phone cameras and mirrors will not be allowed to be used as scoring aids.
So just thermals only.
Yeah. So, some of the discussion that I keep getting from people is about the word aid and what it means in our rule book. And to be honest, they had me questioning myself. I went back to the dictionary and to define the word aid. It's to help, to assist, and support. And I think that's exactly what thermal imaging devices are going to do.
It will be. It will be. And I think when you can think too deep into something, and that's probably what's happening with some of that. But it is, and that is a good word for it. It is a scoring aid. It will be a scoring aid.
Right. So basically how this
which does not mean that it's that just because you have a hotspot you can score it.
Right. And where you're going to see this change out in the rule book is going to be under Rule 6R, where it talks about the scoring aids that you can use without being scratched from the event.
Right.
Right now it lists using your hunting light and your mechanical squaller and a laser pointer for use of showing people the coons or what have you. But this is going to be added to that.
And this will make 4 items that you can use.
Yeah. And with this being an aid, basically it's going to be exactly like a squaller, in my opinion, and your light in the way that it's just going to help you find in the tree where the coon may be, to focus your attention there and to help you find the coon at the end of the
And
hunt.
we're already seeing a lot of people talking about it on our message forums and this and that, and some of it is a little unreasonable, and but it is merely nothing more or less than finding what part of the tree where the hot spot is, and that's where you're going to put your focus to find the raccoon. You still absolutely have to see the raccoon.
Yeah.
And the majority of the cast has to see it.
Yeah.
This is just to find that spot. And what it'll do, it'll eliminate looking in places where it's not, where normally you might have spent all your time looking everywhere in the tree. Now you can kind of focus on the side where you're getting that heat, and it's nothing more than that. And it's not a matter of, we can't agree to a majority says, we all got heat here, and it should be, we know that's it, that's not what the rule still says. You have to see the game. Right. You cannot score it just with this. This is an aid to find where it is. Beyond that, you still have to be able to see it.
Yeah. So
if you go beyond that, if you score it or agree to score it, just based on because you have heat here, you have the sensor shows that you have something here. You don't even know what it is. It could be anything really.
Right.
That's not going to work. That would be a form of cheating, basically.
Right. And I think people know they hunted with these thermals, and we see and talk of if you can use this device to see heat in a tree and focus your attention there to help you find the coon, then shouldn't this thermal imaging device be used to tell you there's no heat in the tree, and then that way we can minus the coon. And I think that the people who are saying that are ones that have never used the thermal imaging device before.
I agree. And reaching as well. But no, you're right. It's you still have to see it. And the other, like you're talking about, where you're going with it is no, it's not going to be take care of, places that you can't see.
Yeah.
There's still places, if the tree still has places where a coon could hide, even if you have this device, you still have the right to circle a tree if a raccoon could be hiding somewhere that you just can't see.
Yeah.
Just because you have that doesn't mean you can't now also circle a tree.
Right. And if you've used
a lot of danger in doing that. Sometimes, these aren't always going to work flawlessly.
No, they don't.
They don't.
I've had the thermal now for, I don't know, 4 or 5 months now. I've used it at a lot of different trees, and you just flat out, I can see the coon with my eyes. I'm looking at the body of the coon, and the thermal doesn't show me any heat at all. Yeah. So there's the situation where a coon might have been laid up for a while, and it's cooled off its body temperature. Might just be too much foliage in the tree, and it's just too hot out, and it's causing so much heat around it that you can't see
so many
the coon.
Variables.
Yeah,
way too many variables. It just wouldn't work that way.
Yeah. So if just kind of use your common sense here, and just use your best common sense here, and you'll understand the usefulness of this. We're in a raccoon hunt. We're trying to give the dog that has the best night, that trees the most coons, is supposed to win this thing. And if we have a tool here, just like if using a squaller or using your light, if we have another tool that's going to help us find those coons and score those.
It's an aid, another aid that we can use to better help us score the dogs accurately or find them. Absolutely. So. But yeah, there's obviously other things that it might raise some concern, as far as, folks doing it maliciously or using them maliciously. Let's say, for instance, I go to my tree by myself, and I might throw my thermal up there to look to see if there's something here. And if I'm not finding anything, maybe close by, but you know what? There are honor rules.
Yeah.
And there's a big part of night hunts, and has been that way since day one, is honor. We have to also rely on our hunters that they are being honest. So, and there will always be those that aren't being, but that's shame on them. But I think for the most part, people are honest.
Yeah. It's important to look at the positive sides of this change.
Absolutely.
And I think the positives far outweigh the negatives.
Yes.
Even right now, thermals are not permitted in our events. Are you going to be naive enough to think that even if thermals aren't allowed, that somebody can't do the exact same thing when they're at a tree by themselves? We'd be naive to think that.
Yep.
It's
that's right.
People who are comfortable enough and have that sort of self-respect to cheat in these hunts are going to find ways to cheat regardless, whether they're tampering with their collar to make it where they can tone or shock their dog,
right,
or whether they're throwing beads up in a tree to make it look like coon eyes. People have been cheating since the inception of these, a very small percentage of people, and why are we going to punish the entire crowd for the few people that are going to take advantage of this?
And that's exactly right. And I always say, it's usually those that are doing things wrong like that, it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, that's right.
They'll eventually hang themselves.
Yeah, that's right. You'll weed out the bad ones. Another question I keep getting about the thermals is any sort of limitations on using thermals. If everybody in the cast doesn't have one, will I be able to use one? If I have one, but nobody else in the cast has one, do I have to let everybody use it? And if I don't let everybody use it, am I not able to use it? I keep getting those kind of questions, and the answer is no. We have no limitations on people using these thermal imaging devices in UKC events.
Well, it's really no different than, let's compare it to using a light. If I go to a hunt and I don't have a light, am I expecting you to shine all of my trees? You can say that might be unsportsmanlike of you to not to do that.
Right.
But guess what? I should have my own light too.
Right.
And and I should also have my own squaller if I want to squall or what have you. And the same is here. Hey, kudos to those. I'm sure there'll be guys that will be using their thermals to help somebody else find their raccoon for sure. There will be guys that don't want to do that. But I don't think we should hold it against consider somebody to be unsportsmanlike just because they don't use it. if it's not their tree, so to speak, but that's I don't think we'd want to get into that.
No.
There's
Yeah.
There's nothing good would come of that.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many times I've left my squaller hanging on my rearview mirror when I go walking into a hunt. And there's always, in the majority of this, people are going to be helping you out, but it's not going to be an instance where they have to. And also, this may help you find a coon or two every now and then. But in the bulk of it, if there's a coon there, you're going to find it with or without the thermal.
Right.
We all know how to find coons if you coon hunt.
Exactly. And we've done it for how many years now? For years and years and years, hundreds of years.
Get in there with your low light.
They used to find raccoons with lanterns, for goodness sakes.
Be like Billy Coleman and go in there and chop down the tree.
Yeah, you don't see Billy pulling out a thermal or anything like that. Hey, man.
He had a whole barn full of hides. So fast forwarding it from thermals now, let's talk a little bit about a couple rule changes where we're just removing warnings from these and basically going straight into to minus and dogs. So the first one's going to be strike in your dog on or before the third bark. This is one that passed back in my first year of working here at the 2018 Autumn Oaks. It went into the 2019 rule book. Am I a year off? 2020 rule book. Sorry.
Yeah. So the rule with that was that you have to strike your dog on or before the third bark after the first minute of having turned your dog loose.
Right.
After a minute has expired, you turn your dog loose. A minute's gone. Now you have to. Your dog could have opened up in that minute. You weren't required to strike it. But once that minute's up, now on or before the third bark. So what happened if a dog made 3 barks or made 4 barks, you didn't get it struck yet, in the old rule, you got a warning on the first offense. Second offense, you were minus, and third offense, you were scratched. The warning just simply comes off now with this new rule change, and it's as simple as now the first offense, if you don't have your dog struck on or before the third bark, you're going to take that position minus. And the second offense, second time you do that, is now scratched. It just removes that first warning for regular events. That is.
That's right. Yeah, and I think it's important to note that this is another one that passed 6-1. Most all the breed associations were in favor of this. And just to be candid here and transparent, I was in favor of this from some of the stuff I'm hearing in the field. Yeah. This seemed like a necessary one, as well as the one that we're going to talk about after this, a necessary change. Where it's kind of being manipulated out in the field a little bit more than we would like to hear, and not being used in the way that the intent of the rule was when it passed originally, which was kind of to give a leeway to beginners and youth that are hunting out who may not know the dogs as well as some of the people should.
And quite frankly, I'm just going to be frank about it here. It's a little disappointing, disheartening to hear from some guys that say, well, hey, you gave us the opportunity to keep it in my back pocket. I'm going to use it and try it. In other words, if they could get away with it, then they got away with it, and that is what it is. I don't,
Right. Yeah, you kind of mentioned it there, alluded to it a little bit before that, though. This did pass with an amendment. And in our youth championship and YEP events, or any of our youth only events in the year, they're still going to maintain that first offense warning.
And the reason for that was when we implemented it 3 years ago, when it was proposed originally, had a lot to do with the youth, not to be so, because a lot of them you have younger handlers, and there is nothing malicious. They're wanting to get their dog struck. They want to make sure it's their dog, and before you know it, their dog's open more than 3 times. They didn't get it struck, so we're giving them minus. So yeah, with this proposal, it will still, the warning will stay there for youth only events, but not regular events. This is very important here where we get that clarified and make sure there's no miscommunication or misclarifications here.
Yeah, and we're in the early stages of starting to work on our 2023 rule book and talking about how we're going to implement this rule. I think we've decided just to put maybe a section entirely about warnings where we kind of highlight that in youth only events is the only time where these warnings are going to be in effect.
Yeah, and when we say youth only events, it's important to note that means only youth only events, not that it doesn't mean if a youth is in a regular cast that it applies to that youth, or let's say there's a cast that happens to have all youth in it. It doesn't apply to them. That's a regular event. It's youth only events like YEP events or just youth only events. The only time that warning applies.
Youth state or breed championships.
Yep.
Those are the only youth only events that we have throughout the year.
Yep. Anybody, any handler, regardless of age, if they're competing in a regular event that is not a youth hunt, then that warning does not apply.
Right. And just to kind of reiterate what you said earlier, now starting in January 2023, in a standard UKC license event, any UKC license event that's not a youth only event, on the first offense and not striking your dog on or before the third bark, you're going to be minus the available strike points. On your second offense, the dog's going to be scratched from the hunt.
Correct.
Moving on to one that kind of goes hand in hand with it is calling the wrong dog. We're also removing the first offense warning for calling the wrong dog in events.
This one was probably a bigger one for youth kids, for calling the wrong dog.
Getting amped up, you're excited. Yep. You haven't hunted with your dog very much, and you get out there, the first dog it opens, you strike your dog. But it seems good in theory when we're talking about it in the breed association meetings back on that rule change year a few years ago. And this is one actually that's probably worse than the one that we just talked about as far as seasoned handlers kind of taking advantage of it. And it's something that we're hearing at our major events from our top non-hunting judges, where guys are out there striking the wrong dog, just trying to get 100 strike or hold a strike high, and making people minus them for or making people give them a warning for calling the wrong dog and taking advantage of it.
And this one here is probably the one that most of our experienced hunters were carrying in their back pocket, just in case. If they could get away with it, they used it, and it's, hey, really, it depends on how you look at it, but I look at it as a form of cheating. And quite frankly, it is. By all intents and purposes, it is, so.
Luckily, we're through with our major events this year. We only got another couple months where people can do that, and start next year, we're going to get it right now. So glad about that. But this is another one that the breed associations voted 6-1 to change it. So it's one that obviously they were hearing a lot about it too, and one that we needed to get fixed. And luckily it's getting fixed as well. And
just like the warning removed from striking on or before the third bark, the same is going to be true for calling the wrong dog. It will only apply, that warning will only apply to youth only events. Right.
We're going to shove it right there in that same section where we're going to put the striking on or before the third bark. In youth championships and YEP events, that's any youth-only events throughout the year. Only those events, like you mentioned for the last one, then they still have that first offense warning. Otherwise, in any UKC license event, that first offense warning is being taken out. And, there was a lot of discussion in the whole rules meeting. I thought it was an awesome rules meeting. We talked about that a little bit already, about everybody did their homework before the event. And a lot of the discussion here between the breed associations and us was that we want to keep the rules in place to where we're able to help young, inexperienced handlers transition into being a competition hunter. Maybe they know the rules well, but maybe, like we said, they get a little amped up and they call the wrong dog, and it happens. Mistakes are made, and this is a way where they get to keep that first offense warning in those youth events to not bury themselves too deep or minus out of the hunt in those situations.
Right, and we have a lot of youth that do hunt in them, and we try to help them best we can, but we've all been there at learning, and part of learning is learning the rules, and a big part of competing is knowing your dog.
Yes.
And you won't know your dog unless you do your homework, and hunt with that dog to learn their every bark, and sometimes, dogs do sound, you'll draw a dog that sounds a lot alike, but oftentimes if you really hunt with your dog enough, you really tune your ear into what that, tone, be it tones or what have you. There's, the good handlers know exactly if it's their dog or if it's not. It's all part of the process of learning, and that's just the difference oftentimes between novice handlers and your intermediate and expert handlers. That's just the difference with all that, learning all that, so, and it's part of it.
Part of growing, and I think with some of the rules that we have this year, we're going to see a better quality handler, and hopefully get more people involved in these events.
It takes me back to when I first started, just excited to be in a hunt, and it's just the excitement of everything. And if I'm probably like I probably was like a lot of young, inexperienced handlers, you tend to, the thing where you mess up a lot of times is tree your dog too soon.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Tree old bandit, and before you know it, he's still just, and those points are hard to make up, so it's, that's why it is important to know your dog, because it's hard enough to win as is, but if you're giving away points as the handler, why, you're not doing your dog any favors. That's for sure.
Absolutely. And just like the last one, now in any UKC license event outside of youth only events, the first offense of striking the wrong dog is going to result in the available strike position being minused, and the second offense is going to result in the dog being scratched from the hunt.
Correct.
So I hope you guys enjoyed us talking about these rules. We're going to talk about the other 3 rules that got past Autumn Oaks in our next Coonhound episode. And we're also going to talk about some of the procedural things that we're looking into changing. That'll probably be in a few weeks. We got a few other episodes between now and then. I hope you guys are enjoying. I know there's a lot of crossover, but enjoying some of the different content that we've had. Some of the Beagle episodes and the Retriever episodes and Shed Dog. And there's a lot of good stuff in our hunting segment. And I hope you guys are enjoying all that crossover and hearing about some other type of working dogs. So until next time, hope you guys enjoy this and hope you guys have a good hunting season. Thanks for listening to the UKC Hunting Ops Podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and to like and follow UKC Hunting Ops on Facebook and Instagram.